So yeah, hello everyone. Welcome back to In Conversation with. And today we have with us Lucy Spencer from Education Boutique. Welcome, Lucy.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me.
It's so good to have you on board, and I'm so excited to learn everything about Education Boutique from start to finish. So to just start things off, can you
Mm.
tell us a little bit about yourself and what inspired you to get into tutoring?
Yeah, absolutely. So I quit teaching effectively, which I'm sure a lot of people that they get into tutoring in the same way. I was really struggling. I taught in Berkshire in a state school. Then I moved to Dubai, taught in a private school there. And part of the reason I did that was I was beginning to find the pressures of teaching in a school, wanting to help children. My area of specialism was always special educational needs and primary. And obviously at that age, they haven't got EHCPs, many of them. There's a lot of like sort of need that isn't sort of funded, if you like. Um, and I was getting a bit disillusioned with the British system. So I tried sort of moving to one of my favorite places in the world, Dubai. Was really lovely. But then my grandpa unfortunately wasn't that well, and I wanted to come back to sort of be with my mum and help her. And so I got a job back in my old school in Berkshire, and it was even worse than before I left, basically. And it just all you want to do is work hard to impact the children. And there was a lot of stuff, politics and things like that, that internal politics that just wasn't helping the children at all. And I was at the age where I was like a young head of year. So I was, sort of dealing with people who maybe expected to have got that job. And then I came back and sort of went into that job. So it wasn't just about the teaching, it was about some of the sort of internal dynamics of just staff rooms and things like that. And so I sort of thought to myself, I wonder if there is a way I can make sort of education work for me, because I love teaching. I never fell out of love with teaching, but I was almost getting to the point where the environment I was in just wasn't really serving me that well. So yeah, that's how I got into it. So I left in December 2015 and started Education Boutique on January the 6th, 2016. So almost 10 years ago now.
My gosh, what a
Yeah.
journey. That's incredible. And yeah, just the story behind Education Boutique as well. I want to know all about that. I mean, you did say how it all started. What was, the driving force behind it?
Yeah, 100%. I think a lot of people look at other people's businesses and they think, oh, they must have sat down, planned it all out, really well formulated, and then like delivered on that plan. That was not how, that was not my experience. So for me, Education Boutique initially was started as I registered the company name. Because it just made more sense that I had a limited company for my personal tutoring. So that's why I started to begin with. So it wasn't like what we are now today wasn't the plan like back there. The
Mm.
plan at that point in 2016 was just like to be able to pay my mortgage and like not starve,
Yeah.
survive. I sort of started, I obviously live in the Berkshire area, so we're quite lucky around here. We have got some amazing private schools. We've got some very, very good state schools. We've got sort of a good breadth and depth of all the different types of school. And obviously, naturally, with tutoring, like many people, it's the parents paying. So the sort of private side of private tuition that was really my area of specialism. And I think that the thing that I jumped into that obviously I had no experience of from being in the school was the entrance exams. I've always loved verbal, nonverbal. It just works with my brain. Like I've always been very successful at those kind of exams myself. And I started, sort of putting myself out on Facebook and quickly got a lot of interest for people looking for those 11 plus, 7 plus kind of exams. And so that's really what I focused on to begin with. But then I did start getting people who were looking at the exams, but supporting someone who was maybe autistic or ADHD. And so that for me became a bit of my niche. So I was an entrance exam tutor, but I was really about sort of working with those learners who had additional needs that meant they maybe needed it done in a slightly different way to the norm. Groups, I mean, I did run groups for a while, like in-person groups. And so I was really just trying everything to see what I liked as well. I did a lot of home education, and one of my first home educated students now is, all grown up going to university and things. So it's amazing to sort of still be connected to so many of the families. I still work with a lot of the families that I worked with in that first year. And I think that's a testament to like the connections that tutoring really gives you. And so then through my sort of network of the private tuition that I'd done around here in Berkshire, I started getting people who were sort of saying, "Oh, by the way, like I've got a friend, like, oh, there's a family who's out in, another country, and they're looking for a tutor to go with them for a ski season, things like that." And so I started like traveling with tutoring, and it was amazing. I loved
That
it.
is so cool.
And that for me really opened my eyes because I've always loved traveling. And so I've sort of gone from, in a couple of years, like 2 years it was roughly, that I'd gone from, can I make this work so I can not go back to the classroom, to, oh my gosh, how can I do more of this? And I remember the first traveling position I went on, like I took a photo, I uploaded it to like Instagram, and I got all these tutors and teachers that I knew who were like, oh my gosh, how are you doing this? Like, can I come and
How
work
can
with
we do
you?
this as
Like,
well?
what? Yeah, exactly. And so that was the turning point. Literally, that photograph, I was like, oh my gosh, maybe it could be something that helps other teachers leave. Or if I'm very cautious that I don't want to sound like we're part of, because obviously there is a big retention recruitment crisis in the classroom at the moment. So I want to be really clear, like, we're not trying to like entice teachers to leave teaching. We're just offering another opportunity that if teachers have, like I did, got to the point where they don't think it's sustainable for them to keep educating in a classroom environment, that like there are other ways you can do it. Then we started like the traditional agency. That was 2018, so that was 2 years after we started. That's when we came for started using TutorCruncher.
Wow.
And yeah, it was really amazing. Hard though, to be honest with you, because you start thinking then a bit more like a business. So then I was like,
Mm.
right, okay, so we need to look for tutors. What do we want, to what's our tutor kind of going to be focusing on? And at that point, we just kind of say yes to everything. I'll be totally honest with you. We were like, yeah, you're looking for an A-level tutor, let's go find you one. Like, um, but now, I mean, how that's evolved is obviously during COVID. That was a really, really tough time for everybody. And I think we really became quite, well, I delivered online quite a lot anyway. So we were quite supportive to parents, to schools, to other tutors. Um, I was living abroad actually for the whole time with a family during COVID. I was working abroad, and so again, I think lots of people started really looking like, oh my gosh, everyone's locked down, and you're like living your mountain life in Austria, like you're living your like Sound of Music life. And I think that that supportive time where we were really supporting a lot of people, I think really like did get a lot of people to know about what we do at EB. And at that point, yes, we were still doing the support for the privileged, the families where they're, private schools, but we'd also started, because this was my passion, was the support, the funded support for SEN to support more, those children who just need something a bit different that the education system isn't able to give them. But I didn't believe that those parents should have to pay for it, because at the end of the day, if you're in a state system and the state system is not meeting your child's needs, there's a legal, it's called Section 19. There's a legal sort of right to a full-time education. So at that point during COVID, that's when I was kind of really like reading so many like legal documents to really understand like how could we get tutoring to be more into the mainstream. And obviously, then the NTP came around, which was obviously the government going, oh, yeah, tutoring, like brilliant. And but I was really concerned by that. And I still remain quite, it hasn't been the big sort of thing that everyone thought it was going to be. Is like, if you economically, if you give a short bursary or a short kind of
Funding to
time limited funding, people uptake it for a short period and then they stop, and so the whole time during COVID, it was very much about me kind of not going for the NTP and working out how, while all those other companies were really, really focusing on making as much money as they could and supporting as many students, and the impact that a lot of those companies had during those 2 years was, or 3 years, was incredible. But as we've seen, the sustainability of that after, when that funding goes, a lot of them have dropped off a cliff and they've had to like diversify a lot. So I use that point to be going into the bits, the send side of things that we really wanted to long lasting be involved in. And that was like tough because obviously I had just sold a little part of Education Boutique to eTeach, which is the largest education recruitment specific
Right.
jobs board and recruitment kind of software company in England. And so that was huge for me. That was amazing. But obviously, as you can imagine, you just come on with this, big company and they're like, right, how are we going to drive as much profit, or, how are we going to make as much impact as possible? There's this bit of funding, let's go for it. And I'm like, no, and there was some tough meetings, during that time. I'm forever grateful that they let me do what I thought, because as we've seen now, there's a lot of companies who delivered huge amounts during the NTP that have now either closed or
Yeah.
declined, or whatever. And so and now we're in an incredible position. We've been increasing our impact, over 80% every year on year for the last 3 years. My main thing is just that it's all about bespoke education. So I kind of believe that whatever, a family that have unlimited wealth, whatever they would go out and purchase for their child to give them the best possibilities in life, I want to work out how we can obviously be trusted by them to do that, but also then how we can bring that same ethos and that same bespoke kind of nature of education to like the most deprived and disadvantaged children in England, basically. So yeah, that's us really.
I think just building on that, because I'm really interested in the sense support that you provide,
Yeah,
especially around, because I read on your website, you work around reintegration of children with EBSA. And for people
yeah,
who don't know what EBSA stands for, I didn't.
yeah,
It stands for Emotional Based School Non-Attendance. So can you
yes,
share a little bit more about how that works and also the
yeah.
impact that you've seen?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's a huge thing. I mean, we could be literally here talking about it forever, but effectively, the school system for children, every child has a named school that they're like meant to attend, right? And we know that attendance is something that Ofsted look at, that the government look at, that local authorities look at, and there seems to be quite a huge emphasis on attendance means learning is happening. Now, whether we agree with that or not, attendance does mean that you're showing up and being part of a community, which is important for all children, especially with the levels of mental health difficulties that we see in young people at the moment. However, I mean, if I mainly just speak about autistic children, first of all, because that is our sort of, if you like, our main focus, our main like if you could pick out of every 10 inquiries we get, probably 8 of them will be an autistic profile a child with other sort of diagnoses as well on top of that many of the time. So a lot of children are going into school into a situation where they feel that they're having to change, and it's also called masking, and they're almost having to hold back real parts of themselves just to fit in. And what we really call that is like a micro trauma. So every time you feel that you're putting yourself into a position where you're not understood, or you're not you're trying to change to fit into something, even though it feels like painful or like not safe, that's a micro trauma. And eventually there's something called Hebbian learning theory, where when cells in your brain fire together repeatedly, they effectively wire together. And so effectively, if we're going into a school situation and say the bell is really noisy and it's unpredictable and it causes you anxiety all the time, effectively it's like the bell causes stress, the bell causes stress. Well, where does the bell happen? It's school. So school causes stress. And then it's just a self-perpetuating kind of motion, if you like, that effectively then we all know about fight or flight. Your body sees school as unsafe, and either we're going to fight, so we maybe get behavioral issues and expulsions and things like that, and that can be a very slippery slope for young people. And then we also get the freeze response, where I just can't go, and it's definitely can't, not won't. You might have heard of people saying like school refusal. That's a term that we really, really would like to educate people on how that's not an appropriate term to use. Um, because it's not that their children are refusing, they are actually not able to go. Yeah, it's not a won't, it's a can't, and it all comes back to this emotional response that's going on. Their high cortisol levels over like a really long period of time just means that they just are not able to. And there are types of diagnoses that mean that that's even more profound, and maybe it doesn't have to be due to micro traumas. Things like that, like PDA, which is a demand avoidant profile on the autistic spectrum. But effectively, that's what we do. We look at when a child is struggling to attend that named setting. Um, they are, as I mentioned, like under Section 19, every child in England, if they are down for a state funded place, they are entitled to a full-time education. Now, obviously, when families choose to home educate, when families choose to go into the private system, the Section 19 doesn't apply anymore effectively, because you've chosen to remove your child from role, or from the local authority's role, and you've chosen to be in control and be liable financially for their education. So that's where we've seen a lot recently, where previously families have like sort of got to the end of their tether in terms of like it's a real trauma. It like changes people's lives. Like families have to give up work to look after children with special educational needs or additional needs, and it's really traumatic. So it's not saying that they give up, as in that they could have done more, but people were home educating because they just couldn't do it anymore. Like they just couldn't watch their child, or the parent shaming that goes on, oh, here's a parent course because you're not able to get them to school and things. It's awful. Like it really is awful, and the system is causing so much parental trauma as well as child trauma, and having a huge knock onto the economy as well, because 50% of working adults have had to take time off their work because of a special educational need in their child. And so the context around this is like, we want to fix these problems, and we want to like almost be a bit like a translator between schools, parents, and local authorities, because there's so much that we understand as like the experts in this quite niche space. There's so much that can be done to mend relationships, to know how to advocate for certain packages of reintegration support and funding being given to schools, even if there's not an EHCP in place. So that's where what we do is quite niche, but unfortunately it's sort of not niche anymore because there's so many people that need the support. And that's where EB has just seen a huge increase, because I think the support that we're offering is quite unusual in terms of, we're not just like, oh yeah, we can give you a tutor, and we can put a tutor in place. We really understand the language that each of the different sort of funding aspects have to sort of receive the information. So there's the basic stuff like the attendance daily, there's the stuff like a report after every lesson. There's things like half-termly monitoring reviews with local authorities or caseworkers. But there's more than that. It's also about just even in the getting the job at the beginning, understanding, what is the goal? Are we looking to reintegrate back into the same setting? Are we looking at a specialist setting? Are we looking at IOTAS? And there's so many like little things, like nuanced things that we can do. But no, like that's the cool thing, is like no child is the same. Like you've met one child, you've met one child, you've met one case, you've met one case. I mean, just the case studies, like they literally give you goosebumps, like we've had so many, but like just one particular boy that I was talking to, the parent of the other day, about how they're getting on. He was with us for 24 months, and it was like an English maths kind of focus to begin with from a school, but definitely not reintegrating back into the school. But we like knew he wasn't ready for that at the beginning, so we just kind of had to meet him where he was. Like, what do you love? And he loved like politics, and he like loved politics. That was his kind of real sort of special interest at the time, and he loved magic. So we actually started there, like with the things that he was passionate about. And this young, he was with us for 24 months. He's now back in full-time school attendance, like absolutely smashing it. He's doing brilliantly. Um, but he came for, this is a boy that to begin with, we had to deliver online sessions only because social anxiety was so great for him. By the end, he came into the office here, he did a tour, he sat in the boardroom, he helped the Labour councillor, Peter Swallow in Bracknell. He was going knocking on people's doors to canvass with him, and it's just incredible what these young people can achieve if they're just like met where they are. And then we build it up and we're like walking alongside them rather than like top down, like, we need you to do this, you must do it. Like, you're never going to get the best out of them. And I just think he's incredible. And that just shows you that if you just meet a child where they are and what they're sort of telling you they like, that's what you can start with. And then you can build in the maths, the English, and it can all come in massively. And, it's yeah, it's amazing. It's really lovely. And like the team here, like, we just love hearing all the stories. And yes, it can be really hard because you also hear the stories of the children coming in and the young people coming in, and that's quite dramatic and tough sometimes. But then on the flip side, you get the positives as well. So it's really
Absolutely.
amazing.
And also talking about your educators as well, you've now built a network of 30,000 educators, I believe.
Yeah.
That's not a small feat, honestly. That's incredible. How did you go about building that team of tutors?
So that was the decision to join forces with eTeach because they actually have 2.8 million educators on their database. So we have taken the specifics of what we're looking for in our sort of SEN and specialist sort of bespoke style thing, education, what we value. Everyone's different. So it's really great that, if we do get a sort of a really unique role, we're looking for a, I don't know, Mandarin speaking, chess playing yoga teacher, tutor. Um, we've got 2.8 million candidates that we can actually draw upon, but the 30,000 is what we've really, really harnessed down to our core, our our SEN specialist educators that we know for our daytime government work, that is our bread and butter, if you like. So it's actually a lot bigger than that in terms of the talent pool that we have direct access to. But obviously, the 30,000 is our specialist SEN educators in our talent pool.
Your company also offers educational consultancy services.
Yes.
That was quite interesting. So, can you tell me a bit more about that as well?
Yeah, so that's in both areas of the government side of things, and then also the world schooling side of things. So if I touch on the world schooling first, so that is very much about where families at all different levels. We're not just talking about our ultra high net worth families here. We're talking about anyone who wants to take their child out of school and go on a world schooling adventure, a bit like a gap year for their children. Um, we're there to support at all levels, right from sending a tutor with you, but even if it's just an introductory planning meeting and then a sort of a wrap up report writing meeting to send the children back into school with a good academic report about what they've done and how it links to the core curriculum and things like that. So very high touch and very low touch kind of opportunities. So that side of the consultancy is super fun. Like, we love that, because it's just like being super bespoke, and
Oh,
planning adventures is always good, and creating little global citizens, it's something that I'm super super passionate about. So with all the stuff that's going on in the world, I think that becomes more and more important, that people are really really, like, they don't just learn about these things in a classroom, they actually get out and see the world, and I just don't think there's anything in life that's more important than that, understanding of the world and understanding of the differences between us, but also how we're all just the same at the end of the day. Like, we literally are. So that is one side. And then the other side is the SEN, the funding, the just making sure that everyone trusts schools, local authorities, for our complex cases with the local authorities, that we offer consultancy about those. But the consultancy with that, yes, it can be just packages of consultancy where we'll go in, but also the consultancy is actually weaved into our core offering of, if someone commissions us to support a learner, consultancy is at the core of what we offer around that. And that's, I think, what makes us a little bit different to other tutoring companies who would just sort of match a tutor. That's all, that's good. But we go deeper, you know?
Um, and also, like we touched upon this in 2018, you
Yes.
joined TutorCruncher.
Yeah.
How did you first come across TutorCruncher, and how did you kind of like
Yeah.
decide that this was the right fit for your business?
Totally. So as I said, it was the point where I'd been traveling and I'd taken a photo and then loads of people have been like, oh, can I work with you? And I was like, oh yeah, but I'm gonna need some, some form of something to, I can't be sending out manual invoices. I'm terrible at admin. So I was like, something data, like something tech has to help me with this. So I was on quite a few of the tutor networking sort of groups and, Facebook groups and things like that. And that's where I sort of actually put a post up and I just said, what are people using, who are small? I wanted to make sure that it was, appropriate for my size because I was going to have like one or two tutors. And I remember speaking to Richard Evans at the Profs about TutorCruncher and like, that it might be a good thing because you can sort of grow with it. And so that for me, it was just like a lot of people came back and just said it was TutorCruncher or nothing, basically. So not to say that it wasn't a good option, but do you know what I mean? It was just very unanimous in, look at it. And so I did a free trial. I think it was back in the that time. I think it was maybe like a 14-day free trial or something like that. And I sort of went on, and the thing I like about it is it was so customizable, and so even now we're able to, because we're using the enterprise level and stuff now, and we can customize so much, which is great. And I think that was a little bit overwhelming to begin with, because you're just like, oh gosh, what do I do? But it just works really, really well. And I mean, the amount of time it saves us just through, sort of everything, like all touch points, from a tutor uploading lessons to a tutor letting us know that a lesson's been cancelled, the automatic emails on, off, customizable, all of that stuff. It's really good for us. So yeah, we're very happy.
I think that's the goal for us as well, isn't it? Just to make your lives easier. So I'm really happy to hear that. Also, like we're coming to the end of our chat now, so this is one of my favorite questions to ask. I ask everyone who's on here. What do you enjoy the most about running your own tutoring business?
That's a really good question. I think for me, it's the stories of, it could be the children, but also, I mean, the stories of the tutors, the stories of my team in the office. I love seeing like, that's my teacher side of me. I love seeing progress and development and, people just feeling a bit lighter as they go through. And I think for me, yeah, just the stories of like people that we've helped or how, us being here has helped people, even my team in the office here, like a lot of them are ex-teachers, a lot of them are ex-tutors. They wanted something different. They've joined the internal team, So it's just lovely to think that y- you've kind of provided a little environment where people can do that. And yeah, like for me, that's everything. Because now, I just every day I'm just like, oh wow, we've done this. It's so lucky. Like I genuinely feel so lucky to call tutoring like my profession and my career.
I love to hear that. I think just having an incredible team around you and doing what you love,
Yeah.
isn't that the dream? Final question. I want to know what's next for Education Boutique. Now, you've achieved so much already, but what's next? Any exciting projects?
Yes. So, oh, like it's always so exciting. And that's not just down to me, just to be clear. It's all my team. They're like, can we do this? Can we do that? And I think that the point we're at now, I feel so lucky because we have just got to this point where everyone who's involved is like seeing the opportunity and wanting to grow for the students and for the tutors and everything. So the big thing for us is that obviously on the 6th of January, it's our 10-year anniversary. So there's going to be loads of celebrations, lots of like new things that we're going to release on the 6th of January, mostly around really focusing on our students that are like not in schools and don't have school communities, trying to like in our own little way, provide communities that they can be part of, provide better things like RS and support for children who aren't in school because the the PSHE side of things, when your child isn't going to school, is a big problem at the moment, and the sense of belonging is a big problem. So a lot of different initiatives around how we can try and give young people who are out of school more of a sense of belonging and community, which is going to be really important.
I think so many people need to hear this right now. So many people would want to know more about send support and everything that you're doing for the children. So I think it's so inspiring to just hear that, not just for me, but for everyone who will be watching this. So thank you so much for doing this, and I wish you all the best.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. And thank you very much for inviting me to do it as well.